Test 2. This is the Ielts listening test. You will hear a number of different recordings and you will have to answer questions on what you hear. There will be time for you to read the instructions and questions and you will have a chance to check your work. All the recordings will be played once only. The test is in 4 parts. At the end of the test, you will be given 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the answer sheet. Now turn to Part 1. Part 1. You will hear a woman phoning a company that converts old photographs to digital format. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 3. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 3.
Hello, Picture Rep. Can I help you?
Oh, hi. I saw your advertisement about copying pictures to disk, and I'd like a bit more information about what you do.
Sure. What would you like to know?
Well, I've got a box full of old family photos that's been up in the attic for years. Some of them must be 50 or 60 years old, and I'd like to get them converted to digital format.
Sure, we can do that for you.
Right. And what about size? The photos are all sorts of sizes. Are there any restrictions?
Well, the maximum size of photo we can do with our normal service is 30 centimetres, and each picture must be at least 4 centimetres. That's the minimum we can cope with.
Well, that should be fine. And some of them are in a frame. Should I take them out before I send them?
Yes, please. We can't copy them otherwise. And also the photos must all be separate. They mustn't be stuck into an album.
OK, that's not a problem. So can you give me an idea of how much this will cost? I've got about 360 photos, I think.
We charge £195 for 300 to 400 photos for the basic service.
OK, and does that include the disc?
Yes, 1 disc, but you can get extra ones for £5 each.
That's good. So do I need to pay when I send you the photos?
No, we won't need anything until we've actually copied the pictures. Then we'll let you know how much it is, and once we've received the payments, we'll send the parcel off to you.
Right.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 4 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 4 to 10.
Is there anything else you'd like to ask about our services?
Yes, I've roughly sorted out the photos into groups, according to what they're about. So can you keep them in those groups when you copy them?
Sure, we'll save each group in a different folder on the disk, and if you like, you can suggest a name for each folder.
So I could have one called Grandparents, for instance.
Exactly.
And do you do anything besides scan the photos? Like, can you make any improvements?
Yes, in the standard service, each photo is checked and we can sometimes touch up the colour a bit or improve the contrast. That can make a big difference.
OK, and some of the photos are actually quite fragile. They won't get damaged in the process, will they?
No, if any look particularly fragile, we'd do them by hand. We do realise how precious these old photos can be.
Sure.
And another thing is we can make changes to a photo if you want. So if you want to remove an object from a photo or maybe alter the background, we can do that.
Really? I might be interested in that. I'll have a look through the photos and see. Oh, and talking of fixing photos, I've got a few that aren't properly in focus. Can you do anything to make that better?
No, I'm afraid that's one thing we can't do.
Okay.
Any other information I can give you?
How long will it all take?
We aim to get the copying done in 10 days.
Fine. Right, well, I'll get the photos packed up in a box and post them off to you.
Right. If you've got a strong cardboard box, that's best. We've found that plastic ones sometimes break in the post.
Okay. Right, thanks for your help. Bye.
Bye.
That is the end of Part 1. You now have half a minute to check your answers to Part 1.
Test 3, Section 2. You will hear part of a podcast for visitors to the popular holiday region called the Trelaw Valley. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 14. Now listen and answer questions 11 to 14.
The valley and estuary of the River Trelaw forms an unspoilt, beautiful landscape, rich in both wildlife and sites of historic interest. There are many ways to explore the area, and public transport links are good. It is possible to leave your car behind and travel by boat, train, or bus, with just short walks in between stops. The Trelaw Valley Passenger Ferry runs between villages along the river estuary and provides a link with a train station at Barry, which is about 10 minutes' walk from the riverside village of Calton. In the past, the river was the main form of transport in the area, and as in the past, today's ferry service operates according to nature. The river estuary is tidal, and so the ferry timetable differs from day to day, according to the times and height of the tide. The ferry is also seasonal, normally running between April and September, depending on the weather. A timetable for the whole year can be downloaded from the internet by visiting www.trelawferry.co.uk. If you just want to sit and relax and enjoy the lovely scenery, you can take a river cruise to Calton and back from the nearby city of Plymouth. In the past, steamships brought early tourists along the same route. Queen Victoria and her family enjoyed such a trip in 1856. The journey is quicker these days. The round trip takes between 4 and 5 hours, depending on tides and weather. If you prefer, you can travel upriver by boat and return to Plymouth by train. All cruise boats and trains have wheelchair access. For more information and for departure times, ring Plymouth Boat Cruises on 017-528-23104. Trains run several times a day throughout the year between Calton and Plymouth, with various stops in between. They are used by both local commuters and tourists who want to enjoy the beautiful scenery. The highlight of the journey is crossing the river on the stunning viaduct, which was built at the beginning of the 20th century and towers 120 feet over the water. It is unnecessary to book, and tickets can be bought on the train. For information about fares and timetables, contact National Rail Enquiries by phone or online. The bus service in the Treloar Valley now connects all train stations and villages in the area. Especially for holidaymakers, there's a Rover ticket which can be used at weekends and on national holidays and allows unlimited journeys on those days. The Rover ticket provides great value for money and is now even cheaper than it was last year. An adult ticket costs £5.50 a day. Senior citizens can travel for £4.50, and a family ticket for up to 5 people costs just £12. Tickets can be bought on the bus.
Now you have some time to look at questions 15 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 15 to 20.
At the center of the Treloar estuary area is the historic riverside village of Kelton. The main road comes into the village from the south, and for those of you who are arriving by bus, it turns left just before the bridge and stops in the lay-by on the left-hand side. From there, it's just a short walk to Kelton's various attractions. If you're arriving by car, you have to leave it in the main car park. Go over the bridge and take the first turning on the right. Then go on until you come to the end of that road. It's the only place to park in Kelton, but there's no charge. If you're interested in local history, there's a museum in Kelton with farming, fishing, and household implements from the late 19th century. As you come in from the south, cross the river and go straight on the same road until you reach the end. Also, on the subject of history, you can go and see the old mill, which has recently been renovated and put back into use. Turn left before you come to the bridge. Then go straight on and then take the first turning on the right. This leads straight there. If you're interested in arts and crafts, there's a potter's studio where you can watch the artist at work. After crossing the bridge, turn left, and it's the second building on the left. Finally, when you feel in need of refreshments, there's a cafe opposite the old boathouse and a picnic area near the mill.
That is the end of section 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 3.
Part 3. You will hear a student talking to their tutor, Mr. Gregson. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 25. Now listen and answer questions 21 to 25. Thanks for making time to see me, Mr. Gregson. I really appreciate it. I've got an assignment due in for Professor Collins next Monday, and I'm having a few problems with it. I was hoping you could help me with a few questions.
Well, not with the topic itself, of course. It's not my area.
No, I understand that. It's more about the writing process.
OK, how far have you got?
I haven't actually started yet. Professor Collins is away until next week, and I thought I'd speak to you in the meantime. It took me a few days to get an appointment. The deadline's the end of next week, so I need to get started as soon as possible.
I hope you aren't going to use me as an excuse if you don't finish in time. Tutors usually set essays sometime in advance of the deadline to give you the chance to read the required literature. If you leave it till the last minute, the books are often all out on loan. I presume you've got the reading list?
Yes. There are lots of sources on there, and I've managed to get hold of some of the main ones. I wanted to speak with you to get some more advice on essay writing. You know, just some general tips on what makes a good essay. I don't feel confident writing an academic piece of work, but that lesson you gave everyone on planning essays was really useful.
Oh, pleased to hear it. You should always start by focusing on the question. Do you remember my advice? It's really important to underline any key words and make sure you check whether there's more than one part to the question. You'd be surprised how many students fail to do this and only provide a partial answer.
Yes, I remember you telling us that. What confuses me are all the different words you see in a question, like analyse, discuss, evaluate, and so on. I'm never quite sure what the difference is between them.
Well, that often depends on the context of the question. In your subject area, history, you're expected to be able to show you understand why certain events took place and to be able to evaluate various points of view. One historian will have a different opinion from that of another, and a good response to the question will show an understanding of the arguments put forward by different people. When you're asked to analyse or discuss or evaluate different views, it's often a similar exercise.
Yes, I think I see what you mean. The essay for Professor Collins is on whether there would have been a revolution in Russia without Lenin. And yes, it's basically all about presenting different points of view.
That's it. Now, I'm planning on holding a session on research and referencing with your year soon. You say you've managed to get some of the sources on the reading list?
Yes, there were a couple of books in the library that I managed to get, and there are journals we can use on the online portal.
Yes, that's very useful. The information in the journals will be up to date and a great addition to the books.
Is it best to avoid using blogs, wikis, that kind of thing?
Yes, definitely. Students who rely on internet sources like those tend to be marked down by assessors. You just can't trust the accuracy of the information, and it's likely to be politically biased and often promotes a particular point of view.
But isn't that the case with the books we're recommended as well? The authors all have a particular opinion.
That's true. The books on the reading list will often have a wide range of opinions, but they'll have been critically reviewed by other academics and will be respected by the academic community. The authors will have researched their subject thoroughly and basically met certain academic standards.
OK, I'll remember that. Thanks for your help. Before you hear more of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 26 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 26 to 30.
No problem. The other thing to remember is to proofread your work carefully before you submit it.
Yes, I do tend to make some basic spelling mistakes.
Well, it's partly about that, yes, but you need to do a bit more than just check for spelling mistakes. Read your work through first to make sure your arguments are clear. Are the paragraphs well constructed and in a logical order?
Yes, that's where planning comes in, doesn't it?
Yes, and remember what I said earlier. Check you've answered the question fully and make sure everything you've written is relevant. Some students think it's all about hitting the word count and fill their essay with information that doesn't answer the question.
Yes, I think I might have been guilty of that in the past.
Once you've read through the main content, check your use of language. Make sure you haven't used any informal language. This is an academic piece of work, so you don't want to be using slang words or idiomatic language. Watch out for any typing mistakes as well as incorrect spelling. And don't forget to check your grammar. Your sentence structures need to be correct. Finally, punctuation can make a huge difference to how effective a piece of work is, so give that some attention as well.
OK, I will do. Many thanks for all your help. That is the end of part 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to part 4.
Recording 58.
You will hear a lecture about rock art. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Hello everyone and welcome. As part of this series of lectures on the development of early humans, today we are looking at rock art, the paintings and drawings produced by prehistoric peoples as they spread across the continents. If you've been lucky enough to look at a piece of rock art close up, you will know it's an experience that makes you wonder about the passage of time and our own history. But rock art also has a practical value for researchers, and let's start by considering why that is. Firstly, it provides vital information about the way that people evolved, information not always easily obtainable from excavated artefacts alone. Secondly, rock art tells us about migration, where people came from and where perhaps they went next. Rock art is found all over the world, and this in itself is not surprising. But what is rather amazing, you might think, is how similar some images are, whether you're looking at a rock face in South Africa or standing inside a cave in Spain. Let me give you an example. When our ancestors drew humans, they would often draw them as stick figures. But if they drew a face, then the eyes were almost always very prominent, very open and wide. And of course, animals are very common in rock art. But one animal which is very interesting to researchers is the lizard, because whenever you see a prehistoric painting of one, it's depicted either in profile or looking down on it from above. And these drawings are produced by people of totally different cultural backgrounds. Amazing. But how can this be the case, that similar artistic styles exist in such distant locations? In the past, archaeologists believed that trade must have brought people together, and that it gave them the opportunity to observe each other's culture, including art styles. But this didn't prove to be the case. Recently, researchers have come up with a new theory. They believe that the brains of our ancestors evolved to notice certain images before others, and this was important, actually essential, because in an environment full of constant danger, it was necessary for survival. So the need to quickly recognise things that could be helpful or harmful could have had a great influence on rock art and explain why some images are more common across cultures than others. Later on, there would have been other reasons why communities produced art, certainly for spiritual and social purposes, and no doubt for political ones too, as different tribes looked for allies and struggled against their enemies. Well, as I said before, you can find rock art all over the world, but I'd like to focus now on the rock art of the Aboriginal people of Australia. The images that survive in this part of the world span at least 20,000 years. In fact, the Aborigines were still practicing this art form in the late 18th century when the Europeans began to arrive, and certain images point to the contact between them. For example, the Aborigines began to draw ships which they would have seen along the coast. It's hard for us to imagine what they must have thought when these first began to appear. Another image that is evidence of European arrival is that of horses, an animal that would have been very alien to the Australian landscape. It isn't actually known how many sites there are across Australia where rock art can be found, but unfortunately we do know that much of the art is being lost to us. Erosion, of course, is one of the key reasons for its destruction, but human activity is also increasingly responsible. Since the 1960s, industry alone has destroyed around an estimated 10,000 pieces of art. At this rate, in 50 years, half of all Australian rock art could have disappeared for good. Vandalism is sadly another factor, and although most people, I believe, would wish to preserve this art, I'm afraid that tourism is another reason why the art is disappearing. In some cases, the art is damaged when people